Hello and welcome to another video recap for a day trader's journey. This chart today is the NASDAQ 100, E-mini NASDAQ 100, and each bar here is 12 ticks tall. So each bar is a range bar. Uh, Instead of time-based bars, I'm using range bars for my trading. And again, this is a 12 tick range bar on the NASDAQ. Today was a pretty rough day. A lot of setups that happened were stop outs, and that's true for the ES and the Russell and the YM. Today was kind of a little more sideways and choppy initially for the first 4 hours of the market. But if you kept to it and stayed with the strategy, eventually you would have hit a profitable trade, which would have helped with some of the losses. It wouldn't have made up for all of them, but put you in a reasonable place where you're not losing too much money for the day. So today we start off again sideways in the first 6 minutes of the opening range, and then we first break out of the range to the upside. So based on that, we are looking for long setups or trade setups to buy. And as price comes back into the opening range, gray shaded area here, we're still looking for longs only. And the first long setup happened here. Then this is circled in red, and this means that the trade setup was valid, but it didn't work out. Again, it was a long trade that got stopped out. You can see here we're bouncing off of the first standard deviation of the volume weighted average of price, which is the white dashed line here, and it was a good clean bounce off that. And we don't really pay attention to the net here anymore. I'm just looking for longs, even if it's against the net, meaning that these three black lines are not supporting it. They're acting as resistance. We still take the trade based on that price broke to the upside and it has a bullish bias. So based on that, we got stopped out on the first trade. So we keep going looking for the next one. And again, this green arrow shows you where I got into the trade. This is the actual bar I got in. And on the NASDAQ, I use a 5-point maximum stop. So just to give you an example, just on this trade, I'll show you that the low here on this candle was 42.38. And so I want to put my stop about 2 ticks below that. So that's 42.3750. So my entry is roughly going to be 42.3750 plus 5 points, which gives you 42.5. So I got in again around here, 42.5, and my stop would have been right below this level here. And you can see price broke below this level as it came down. So that's where the stop would have been. And the targets for NASDAQ are a little bit different than the ES. Targets are 10 points and 25 points on the NASDAQ, because the NASDAQ moves a lot more. Okay, so that's one trade example. And then after that trade, you can see that we started breaking down to a little bit to the bottom here, showing some weakness. Maybe the trend bias might be going short, but you can see it goes right back up to the top side here. So again, pretty choppy. No trade setups. This doesn't count as a short trade here set up, because we're positive at this point. This green bar closed above the opening range, showing bullishness bias again. And so when this red bar came down, bouncing off this VWAP line, which is the pink line here, and pink and blue, it wasn't a setup for the downside trade. So no trade setup here. We go back down. Now we're bearish again, and then there's no setups here. You can see here we didn't bounce off this white line to the downside. We didn't have two red candles coming down, so no trade setup to the short side yet. So we keep going, and we see that our next possible trade again is going to be bullish and long, because again we're back above the opening range. And our first setup here to the upside is a bounce off of the VWAP itself right here, the blue line here. And you can see this green candle here, and two green candles. Let me move this out of the way so you can see a little better. Two green candles bouncing off of the VWAP line. So we took that long, and you can see it came right back down. Stop loss would have been right below that low of that wick here, and you can see that would have been taken out before hitting any profit targets. So that's the second trade. That would have been a loss. Valid setup though, valid per my rules and my strategy. And then we're still looking only for longs, because we're price was previously above the opening range, hasn't broken below it in the most recent past. So we're still looking for longs. Here's a circle that's based on another level of a strategy. I'm looking at maybe taking bounces off the net in the direction of the opening range, which is bullish. But again, that's a more advanced strategy. We're not going to look at that right now. That's still being tested. So again, we have 2 losses so far. Again, this one here and this one back here. I didn't take all these trades. All these setups are kind of, I just wanted to go over all the different setups of the strategy and see what would have happened. And you can see here, another trade set up here, bullish, bounce off of the white line, which is the first standard deviation of the VWAP. And you can see here, we hit some level of resistance, which is the black dashed line, which is yesterday's closing price. It came up, hit it, came right back down. So this is still a valid setup, but in real time, if you saw this, you probably would like, hey, this is acting as resistance here, this black line. So maybe I should wait before taking this trade and see if it breaks above it. But again, it's a valid trade setup. Didn't work out, so it'll be the third loss. And then you have here a bounce off of the blue line here, which is the VWAP itself. Price came down, bounced off it, 2 green bars going up. Then it got stopped out as price came right back down. So even though we're bullish because we're above the opening range, price has been fighting us. It's been really trapped in a sideways range and looked like it's going down. So I drove this trend line downward to see where it's going to break to the upside again, and just to get an idea of the trend. But again, our bias is still bullish because we're above the opening range. Next setup happens. So we have 4 losses in a row here. Next setup happens here. This is a blue circle, which means that this trade setup worked out. So we have a trade here that, let me move this to the side here. You can see here that it's kind of choppy here, but you can see that the price, this red candle came down into the opening, the VWAP, which is the blue line. You can barely see it here under these orange dot lines. Then as this red bar came down, hitting the VWAP, then price bounced back up, 1, 2 green candles, both above the VWAP, which is the blue line here. This counts as a signal set up to the long side, and my stop would have been placed below the low of this wick here. So 5 points above it, put me in around 47.52s, and that reached the first target and then some. Didn't reach both targets, but it reached the first target, and a little bit more profit than the first target. And so you would have stopped out by a trailing stop around here on the first trade here. Then this setup happened right after. You can see this, we move up above the VWAP. This is the first standard deviation line of the VWAP, the white line. Red bar coming back down to the VWAP. Green coming back up right above it here. These 2 green bars, a signal. So looking for long, placing your stop above the swing low here, and you would have got in around here, around 42.61, and that worked out as well for first profit target and then some. So based on that, you would right now it's about 11:40 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so you have about an hour and a half left in the market. At this point, you've gone through a lot of trades already, and you've made up some of your losses, but not all of them, with these two trades because they didn't reach full profit target. So making it a manageable small loss for the day, but it would have been real tough, trading and watching the market for 3 hours or so, and having just nothing but loss after loss after loss, 4 in a row. But again, if you stick with it and you keep going, you should be able to get a couple positive trades to help with loss and hopefully get back into positive territory for the day. If not for the day, then the next day will help you do that. So that's it for today. Hopefully you learned something, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thank you very much.